Welcome to Biz Dev Live. I have such an amazing show prepared for you today. We are going to be in a NFA mindset. We are not effing around. We're going to say the full word. So if that's not something you're into, turn it off now. But if you're prepared to not F around, be NFA, about your money, about your life, we're going to talk to Dr. Amanda Barrientez, and she is going to give us how your outer world is a reflection of your inner world, how to eliminate competing commitments, and how to make sure that you don't have a money mindset conflict, all that and more right after the Biz Dev theme. My name is Cameron Toth, and this is Biz Dev Live.
Biz Dev Live, weekdays at 11 Eastern Time. Biz Dev Live, weekdays at 11 Eastern Time. Biz D with C, brought to you by Cameron T. Biz D with C, brought to you by Cameron T. This is business development, not even selling it. This is intelligent. If you watch it, I promise you benefit. Leadership and motivation, empathy and inspiration. Leadership and motivation, empathy and inspiration. Biz Dev Live, weekdays at 11 Eastern Time. Biz Dev Live, weekdays at 11 Eastern Time. Biz D with C, brought to you by Cameron T. Biz D with C, brought to you by Cameron T.
Dr. Amanda Barrientez is an NFA, no fucking around, NeuroFreedom Alignment business consultant who helps entrepreneurs unblock and more than double their money flow using her proprietary manifesting profit strategies. After going from food stamps to building a six-figure business fast, she's been on a quest to teach driven business builders how to make more money doing exactly what they love to do. You can check her out on the Max Potential Money podcast at nfamoney.com. I am so excited to bring Dr. Amanda on the show. Thank you for being on the show with me.
That intro.
You're good. Go ahead.
So great. That intro made me dance. This is a rockin' intro. I love it.
That is what we want to do. Get people moving, and we don't want to fuck around with it, right? We want to get to it.
That's right. NFA intros. That's what it's all about.
That's right. So talk to us about what you're doing right now, how you help people, and then we'll get into the background.
Yeah, so I have my podcast, which is called Max Potential Money, and we just dropped the first episode of the new season yesterday. So lots of great stuff there. I always bring amazing tips and tricks that help people with money, mindset, marketing, manifestation, things that are going to help them up level in their business. Always looking within first. So I do a lot of mindset stuff. And I have a new program that I'm super psyched about. So it's a business consulting program called Manifesting Profits, and it's group-based. Some incredible people in there who are really high drive and wanting to take their businesses to multiple six figures plus. So that's a great thing to check out as well.
So coaching and a mastermind group to boot, so you get a little bit of push towards your goals with some high power networking.
Yes, absolutely. Networking and a lot of training. So I switched my model really from coaching to more consulting. So I do coaching, training, teaching, like a big mix of things. So it's really a place where you get a roadmap to understand how to can accelerate your profits a lot faster. I did polls with all the people I worked with last year. And I said, if you could get one result, what would you want that to be? And they all say, we want to keep increasing our profits and our revenue. And, of course, since they were attracted to me, I knew they were also attracted to doing work in the science-based art and science of law of attraction and manifestation. So I always bring really practical tips to the table to help them magnetically increase their income through alignment within themselves first and foremost.
Yeah, I love that you talked about the polling and getting that information from folks. It's interesting. You were on Biz Dev Live networking on Tuesday. You did an amazing job with your 5-minute presentation. Hopefully you made some great connections there as well. I did a poll and I asked everybody, what they wanted. And there was a bunch of different things. And we did get an array of answers, but that building more revenue into the business was probably the biggest one on there, what people are looking for. I mean, I don't think that's uncommon across the world. I think everybody is like revenue focused. Sometimes you can make money by, reducing your expenses, and that can be a big deal. But I think if you want to level up and you want to get to another place in life, have another level of influence, excuse me. Oh.
Salud.
It got me. If you want that happening in your life, you want to level up your revenue. So anyways, I thought that was a critical piece, and I'm glad that you talked about it.
It's funny, Cameron, because you did that poll and I saw it and I was like, oh, this so relates to my business. I took a screenshot of it. So I have it on my screen right here because I just pulled it up, and it was 48% of the participants said that they wanted more revenue in their business.
You're more prepared than I am. That's awesome that you have that. Yeah, no, because I put it together, and I'm definitely gonna talk about it in the coming weeks because it's a big deal, right? And by showing people, what they're looking for, I think that provides a lot of value and brings the education that we're going to bring to people. It makes it more meaningful. So I love the data behind of it. So talk to us about your background. Why are you passionate about what you do? Talk to us, give us this whole story, how you went from food stamps to a 6-figure business.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I can say pretty much whatever I want to say here, right?
Yes,
I just want to make sure. Okay,
yes,
cool.
We gave people a warning at the beginning.
Okay, good. Okay, yeah. So I mean, it's interesting to share this live with people and be so vulnerable. But my entry into what I do now really started with massive relationship fallout, where I left my 15-year marriage having an affair. And I share that easily now. When I first started sharing that, I would turn red and sweat, and there's a lot of shame around it. And I really had no relationship skills and no money skills. And I love my family, and we all learn from our families by watching what they do, by listening to what they say. And we're like little sponges when we are growing up. And so everything that is going on around us, we absorb. And, I absorbed some relationship skills that weren't helpful for me necessarily. And so I didn't really know how to leave my relationship that wasn't working. And I love my ex-husband, and I now have done the repair work, and we're incredible friends. We have family dinners and family trips, and we're really close. But what happened was I left my relationship having an affair. My next relationship, of course, was falling apart. And then my ex-husband lost his job. So here I am in grad school. I have 3 kids. And no very low income. And I'm facing homelessness. I don't know how I'm going to feed my kids. I really didn't want to drop out of grad school because I knew that was one way that I was going to start to try to accelerate and get out of this stuck situation. And I was on the floor literally crying one night, and I had this epiphany moment where I thought, I'm the common denominator here. I've got to figure out how to be different. And I don't really know what that looks like, but I know I've got to do something different because I'm really tired of these outcomes. I want a relationship that feels good, and I don't want to be freaking out about money and in this fear space of survival mode all the time. And what that led to was podcasts. And I started listening to everything I possibly could, like at every moment possible. So, I'd be washing the dishes, listening to podcasts on double speed, and I'd be riding my bike to school, double speed podcasts. I'd be driving my kids in carpooling, double speed podcasts. And I just was downloading all of this information and saturating my brain with personal growth and development. And it started to work. And I started to feel like a different person. And I started to have access to, I got entry into this relationship program, and there I learned that I didn't have wealth building anywhere in my value system. And that was part of the reason why I was poor. And I realized, you can actually learn wealth building skills and get unstuck. And that led me down this really fun path of understanding mindset and what I now call competing commitments, which we'll talk about in a bit. But it changed my life. And then one of my missions was I want my own podcast, because I saw how much that free access to information helped me. And I wanted to make sure that I was serving the world in that way. And so I started my own podcast, and then once I graduated, I started my business. And in my first full-time year of business, I went to 6 figures. And it's just been, from there, it's just been this upward trajectory of me stepping more and more into my zone of genius, loving what I do, repairing relationships, repairing my finances, and then really manifesting amazing things in my world. So that's the backstory.
So talk to me about the school. Like, what did you go to school for, and how's that relate to what you do now? And I understand you have this personal story where you were going through a lot of loss, the divorce. I guess the divorce was happening while you were in school.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, it wasn't. Yeah, so I have my PhD in sociology, and that program was 7 years long. So divorce happened in the middle of that, and I really thought I was going to be going academic track, and then all of this fallout happened, and then I went to a coaching school for relationship building. And that really just rocked my world. And I thought, I love teaching. Like I've always, when I started teaching in grad school, I won awards, and I was like, oh, this is my thing. And so I realized, I could be a coach and get paid a lot more and not have to move. I saw a lot of my colleagues on the job market, and, they were moving to places I wouldn't want to move. And the pay potential in academia is very different than the impact I can make in my own business.
I love that. And so what has been the thing that, obviously you have this personal journey, but how's that connected, through, to what you're doing and who you're helping and that sort of thing?
Do you mean like when my educational background?
Yeah, in terms of like, so you have this journey that you've been on, and you were able to do something for yourself, and that's been amazing for you. And I understand why you want to help people. And how is that like connected to the people you're serving?
So I bring all of in my grad school era, it was really almost a decade of school, because I went back and finished my undergrad 2 years, and then I went straight into a PhD program. So it was 9 years straight in academia, and all of that time was spent on human behavior, really. So I did dissertation research with incarcerated men and learned about transformation and masculinity and all kinds of cool stuff. And then when I started coaching, I actually thought I was going to be relationships. So I tied these things it was human behavior. And I would go to networking events live where I live in Boulder, Colorado. And everyone I was running into was an entrepreneur. So I ended up working with entrepreneurs. And then I realized these human behavior principles that I've been spending the last decade learning. And then in all my coaching adventures that I was going to workshops and getting different certifications, I realized a business mindset is a very powerful mindset. If you're able to adopt an entrepreneurial mindset, you can really take your life far. And it all just tied together in this. It was almost like puzzle pieces coming together. It's like, you need to have personal power and win-win relationships and money mastery in order to have a really lucrative business. And then everything just layered on top of itself. That led me down the road of quantum physics and learning, about the law of attraction. And then I just pieced it together into what I call manifesting profits strategies. So I
love that. You got real heady, real fast there. As we're getting into the physics spectrum and all that quantum. Love how you threw quantum physics in there like it was nothing. Humble brag, right? So, so talk to us about some of these ideas, right? We talked about some of the takeaways. We start talking about in your story the money mindset conflict. So do you want to go down that path, down that road?
Sure, absolutely. Do you want me to start? Does it matter where I start? Nowhere? Just start wherever. Yeah, money mindset conflict. So I'll start with competing commitments. I'll start at the very first one. Something I realized early on that I kept hearing and reading and learning over and over again from the greatest masters that I was learning from was that your outer world is a reflection of your inner world. And that is, for everyone watching or listening, if you really, really integrate that and live your life by that, everything will change. Because if you go, I don't like the results I'm getting on the outside, look within. And it's a challenging place to be, because a lot of us would rather blame other people for our realities. It's so much easier to point the finger and go, it's your fault. It's society's fault. It's my parents' fault. It's religion's fault. It's the life I was born into's fault. And when you do that, you lose all of your power to change. And so when I really realized my outer world is falling apart and it's me on the inside that I need to shift and learn how to master, everything started to change. And if that's all you took away from this today, that would be a golden nugget to live by. If you don't like what you're seeing on the outside, look within. And your outer world is a reflection of your inner world. Your outer world, if you don't like what you're seeing in your profits in your business, look within. Are you being a strong leader? Do you have a powerful money mindset? have you eliminated your competing commitments? So that was the next layer for me, was how to eliminate competing commitments. And when I came up with this term competing commitments, it has to do with shadow work, really. I got trained by Dr. John Demartini in the Demartini method, and I got really into Debbie Ford and Carl Jung. And Debbie Ford mainstreamed the term shadow work. And it's really based on Carl Jung's work, where we look at, one of my favorite quotes of all time is, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will run your life and you will call it fate." And so the whole work that we need to be doing is to make the unconscious conscious, so that it doesn't run our life in a way that feels like there's an invisible force holding us back. And the more work I did in examining that, and the more people that I got to work with, I saw, wow, we all have these things that I call competing commitments. So this is when your unconscious and your conscious are battling against each other. And the reason that happens is because 95% of us is run by our unconscious. So if you say you want something, that's your conscious 5%, but you're not getting it, 95% of your unconscious is holding you back. So this looks like limiting beliefs, and it looks like money blocks. It looks like relationship challenges. It looks like self-sabotage. It causes a lot of issues for us. And so one of the great gifts that I like to bring to the table for people is helping them raise their awareness about what their competing commitments are, so that then they can unblock them and then move in the direction that they say they want to go consciously, and not feel like there's this invisible force holding them back. So shall I stop there before we move forward?
Let's break down some of these concepts, because you threw a lot out there. I mean, the unconscious, if you don't make the unconscious conscious, I'm not even sure if I'm saying that right, but I'm going to say that folks know what I'm talking about here. By taking what you're not really putting out there and really putting it out there, being vulnerable with yourself to a certain degree, right? And making sure that you're understanding and conscious of your limiting beliefs, you can then move past them. And I see that, when you're talking about your outer world as a reflection of your inner world, when you make excuses for yourself, apologize for yourself, don't step into your own confidence of what you have done and can execute, right? I see all of those pieces in what you're talking about. So that we're providing value with this, what is the way for somebody to move past limiting beliefs?
Yeah, it's a great question. And in part, I will say it's why you need a coach or a consultant or someone who can help you see your blind spots, because often if you were conscious of it, you would have fixed it and already moved past it, right? But I will say that when you have this information and you start to see that as the case, then you just start to dig. And you can do this on your own. It's easier if you have someone to guide you, but you don't have to. So it would be things like, you have competing commitments if you're not getting the results you say you want. And that goes in every area. If you say, I want a thriving, amazing, incredible relationship, and you keep attracting people who aren't aligned with that dream that you have, then you've got to look within. What is it in you that hasn't become that could attract that? And so you start digging. And the simplest, most practical ways to do this is to start by daily meditation, daily personal growth and development, and daily journaling. And people will laugh at this. And as I walk people through programs that I offer, they go, oh my God, journaling has radically changed my life. 5 minutes of meditation a day has completely changed the way I react to things. And the thing is, you've got to start to become a master of yourself. So if you're not working on personal growth and development in some way, and that can look like podcasts about mindset and confidence and leadership and understanding yourself to the best of your capabilities, then, if we look at the ideology that success leaves clues, and we see that all of the most powerful people on the planet practice personal growth and development every day, why would you not want to do that? And so I would start there, so for people, if they go like, how do I start to become conscious of my unconscious blocks? You go, okay, let's start with personal growth and development. This will start to help you have insights and perspective shifts that you don't even know that you need to have because you're not aware of them. And then when you meditate, you actually change your brain structure when you meditate. It's such a powerful tool. And I think people really overlook the power, but we hear it all the time, like, oh, meditation is great. But I think a lot of us think like, it means you need to sit for 45 minutes in lotus position, and they're not totally sure about why they're doing it. And for me, it's more about train your brain in the direction of your success. If you're somebody who can react slower and instead respond and take time, it really 5 minutes a day of meditation will completely alter your brain over the course of a year. And then when you journal, it's self-reflective awareness. So I tell people to do a 5-minute journal session, and they can think of it as getting to know yourself better. So it's, you write down what's working, what's not, and you can start to see patterns in that. And so when you go, if something's not working day in and day out for a week, then you go, oh, there's a block somewhere, and it's showing up in my outer world where I'm either tired, I'm not enjoying it, my business isn't flowing. You can start to pick that apart a little bit. So you want to start to get conscious of the things that are and aren't working. Most people just don't even take the time to do that.
It's interesting. I was listening to Gary Vee the other day, and he was having somebody, jump into the show. He's somebody I look to as a role model in my life. And there was this guy on the program, and he was saying, it really helped me. I wanted to compliment me. And Gary Vee was like, that's great. And for myself, when was that moment? Like, what did I say? Or what did, and he said, well, I listened to this one video, it was about this. And then I did this deep dive, and I did like 24, 48 hours of Gary Vee. And I was reminded of that as you were telling your story, and you were saying downloading data from podcasts. I think about this, it only takes you to come upon like a Tony Robbins video or inspirational talk, and you go down this rabbit hole, and you start to be aware of, all these things because they're being demonstrated, and you say, I do that. Oh, I do that. And then it starts to be a little bit more conscious. And listening to you talk about journaling, like, yeah, I know writing stuff is important and I should be doing it, but I'm not doing it. So I probably should start doing it.
Yeah.
Talk to me about, because I was thinking about two other things too while you were talking. One is how do you get people that aren't doing things to do them? That's always the, like the $1 million question, how you motivate people to do the things that will help them. And it's one thing when they want to do it, right? And then I have family members that are doing things and they're not, focused on personal growth and development. And so I know that's part of kind of what you talked about. How do you kind of separate that? Is that a competing commitment? If I'm trying to, create some kind of change in my family, which maybe is something beyond my control, and I'm getting angry about it because it's not changing. How do you suggest people kind of work through that kind of stuff?
So many questions there that we could go really deep into. So one thing I would like to say first is there's a difference between inspiration and motivation. So when motivation comes from external forces getting you to do something, which is why it's really hard to do. I don't motivate people. I do not. If you're not ready to change, do not work with me. NFA is definitely my brand. And I'm definitely one of those people that goes, be ready to change. You might not know the way or the how or the tools. That's my job to teach you, but be ready. Because you want to be inspired from within. And so motivation versus inspiration are two very different things. And so I think it's interesting, even when someone asks me, how do I motivate myself? I already know they have a competing commitment, because no one would ever say to you in the morning, they would never have to say something right to have you get up and do the things you love to do. So, all of us, we want to think like, oh, what do I get up in the morning and spontaneously do that I love that no one has to tell me to do? That's your inner source of inspiration.
Yeah, I hear it all the time, because, we're constantly in this thing with Biz Dev Live. I'm very focused on what's the why, right? And so it's very easy to see if somebody is not connected to their why. Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. And so then, when we're trying to motivate other people, often this happens with parenting. I see, where people go, oh, I want my kids to do this and this and this. And I like to always can get back and peel the layers. Why? Often we're parenting or motivating people from a place of fear, because we have something in ourselves that we think, oh, I don't want them to be like me, and I don't want them to make the mistakes I made, and I don't want them to have to suffer. But the truth is, that's their journey. That's their reality. And if you're charged about it, it means that you haven't owned the gifts of the things that have happened to you in your past. And so whenever we're trying to protect someone from something bad that's happened, it means that you still haven't cleared that for yourself. So it's really fascinating to watch the way that people try to get other people to do things. And this is funny to say as a business consultant, right? Because I get paid to help people do things. But it's based on helping them tap into their inner source of drive, which is your genius, your zone of genius, and really doing what you love. It's why I say I love to help people make buckets of money doing exactly what they love to do, because you are most magnetic when you're doing what you love to do. You're least magnetic when you're being forced, prodded, pushed, motivated by external sources.
I love that. And what about, well, before I ask more questions, what about this this kind of challenge of you have some of these external relationships, maybe within the family, mine in particular. I have a niece. Maybe she'll see this, maybe she won't. I don't care. I'm not fucking around, right? So she's definitely making some decisions that I feel aren't in her best interest, and it's driving me crazy. And I know it's potentially a wedge in the family. How do you suggest people deal with those kind of external forces, relationships outside of your, control? How do you deal with the mindset around that?
It's a great question. And people ask me this all the time. And I work with people a lot on relationship, and parenting comes up a lot, as I'm working with people, usually people who have families, and it's a huge issue because we tend to want to control other people when we feel scared, instead of going, what are the only things in our control? Ourselves, right? We can only control our own thoughts, decisions, and actions. That's it. You cannot control other people. And it's hard when you're talking about someone who's younger than you, like a child or a niece, or, someone who you feel like you should be in this mentorship role with. And you are in a mentorship role, but you're mentoring by modeling. And you're mentoring by modeling what you love to do. So for me, it's funny, I've worked with kids before, and then I really quickly learned, it's the parents I've got to work with, because the kids are a reflection of the parents. So if you kind of think about the outer world as a reflection of your inner world, the kids are the outer reflection of the inner parenting, right? And so you want to look at where are the parents blocked, and what's going on in the relationship of freedom for the children when they're doing things you don't necessarily want them to be doing. Let's just say drug use is a really simple example. A lot of people are really freaked out by their kids doing drugs. And we go, okay, let's talk about educating the child from the place of letting them make a decision that's best for themselves. Because if you're telling them no, what you do is you're creating a rebellious force where they, instead of them getting to choose responsibility for themselves and then getting to choose what they love to do and then getting to choose a path that feels good, and you modeling all those things, you're pushing rules, which most kids want to rebel against. It's
Right.
just human nature.
Yeah. I mean, I know it's very, I think, easy to say, just spread love, just spread joy, be the change you want to see in the world. It's a lot more difficult when you see people very much like you said. I think, you got some internal forces. People want folks to avoid the mistakes that they've made themselves. I know that's true for myself, and I'm seeing it with my niece. Robert Person says, come to Family for Life room, myself, 5 kids, my wife, we discuss all kind of family values in the family. We can help. All right. So, I think Robert has a really incredible story, and he wants to do change in his community. So he's relating with what's going on right here. I think, to his point, communicating and having those conversations, I definitely do that with my own children. It's frustrating. And I'm hoping it won't be frustrating later for my family, but it's definitely frustrating for me to see my external family doing some of the same mistakes that I made when I was a kid. And so I'm trying to separate.
Yeah.
This is my life. I'm doing what I can for my kids, controlling what I can control. The serenity prayer, right? God grant me the serenity to change what I can and know the difference. Yeah.
Know the difference between the two. Yeah. I mean, I'll say this. It's not about happy, joy, love, oh, my kids can do whatever they want. You're going to have boundaries as a parent, but it's more about good communication. If respect is a balance between praise and reprimand, right? If all you're doing is controlling your kids out of fear, they are going to want to rebel. And this is the same, let's in business, same thing. You want to hire people to their zone of genius. and you want to help them expand to their fullest potential, you want to treat your kids the same way. Like, you, from day one, like, start cultivating what is it my kids love to do, instead of putting all these shoulds on them. Like, you have to do this and you have to do this to be a productive member of society. Says who? I think our school system is completely broken, and we need to let kids learn how to discover what they love, because no matter what, they will find a way to get information about the things they love.
I love that. Let's hover on that for a moment, because I've been doing the college and career preparation in high school, and it often comes up, where's the financial literacy? Where is the real life, how to deal with, turmoil, pandemic kind of stuff? How do you actually manage the mental side of it? It's really exciting to see some programs around yoga and meditation in the schools. So they're getting a little bit in some schools that usually have resources, not the ones that don't, right? But there is a little bit of focus on mental health, which is such a big need in the United States in general, and all over the world. What are the things that you could see, like, in an ideal curriculum for folks if they were really concerned about preparing healthy, because you've done so much study around human behavior and human insight? What would be a healthy curriculum to prepare a teen for healthy adulthood?
You might not like my answer. I'm very not in the mainstream thinking in these ways. I really believe that all you need is rudimentary education, and then you need to cultivate what kids love. And because they're dying of boredom, they're dying of being told what to do. The landscape has completely changed. We can't have kids sitting in desks all day, every day anymore. Like, they have access to knowledge at all points in time in their phone, and they know it. And so they sit there and they go, why am I learning calculus that I'm never going to use again? I think it's ridiculous that we teach kids it's like, you need to know how to add, subtract, divide, multiply. Beyond that, there are most jobs you're not going to need to know beyond that. Most businesses, you don't need to know beyond that unless you're specialized. Then go all the way in your specialty area, because it is in your zone of genius and that's what you love to do. And we want to have opportunities for kids to do that. But we have a huge issue with kids being, labeled ADHD and ADD. And of course, they're bored out of their mind. You go watch them hang out with their friends and play a video game for 6 hours straight. That's very clear indication that they don't have ADHD. They just don't like to focus in school because they're bored out of their minds. And so, we've got to reconstruct an educational system that allows students to understand their gifts, their dreams, and cultivate that. And then they turn into, mostly probably really brilliant entrepreneurs, because we are creative beings and we really want to play and expand and create, but in the ways that we're interested, not in the ways where someone's telling us you need to love calculus. Most people don't. And they
I'm going to say I highly agree with you on a few points that I think are just really clear. One, put any executive in a curriculum where they have to do repetitive things and basically watch what is a boring YouTube video, in the sense of education one to many. So you don't actually get to participate and engage. It's interesting because in the college and career program that I do, we bring adults in from all types of business environments to do a mock interview. We also have like some one to small group where an adult is talking about their career. It's really interesting. Like, when they get on the stage and they're doing the mock interview competition, and there's an adult sitting across from this child, this teenager, it's one of the few moments in the 4 years of high school that they're actually sitting one-on-one with a concerned, intelligent individual that is providing them insight and advice on potential career. And when you think about that, it's like, where what are we doing, right? Because I'm in this situation, I'm putting my self in a situation, one-on-one meetings, meeting people, not necessarily for, it's nice when, everything lines up and there's business to be done. But a lot of times I'm meeting with people just to really get to know people, expand my network. If this is something that we're building in to kids at a high level for high school students, one, that they can do it with themselves, and then two, that they can do it with adults and individuals. How much does that impact the rest of their life? It goes to the entrepreneurial piece, but I absolutely agree that, in terms of the curriculum and what they're doing, it needs to be engaging. It needs to be participatory. It needs to feed the love, because going back to the example of putting the executive in that situation, you're telling me that, that guy isn't going to be, or that woman isn't going to be categorized as ADHD as they sit there and fidget and go crazy. People are doing it on the Zoom calls, right?
Yeah,
They're working from home, or, they were doing it before this whole pandemic started. It's tough to be in a boring meeting. And so you basically said to children, you're going to be and more so now because we're doing school virtual, you're going to be in a boring meeting for 6 hours of your day. And you gotta deliver.
Yeah. But this is I had such a cool real life experiment with this. You said so many things I want to respond to too. So I'll talk about the full real life experiment in a second. First, I want to say what you're getting at is that people are values driven. So our life demonstrates our values, and what your values are. I'm not talking about honesty and integrity and things like that. I'm talking about your highest drive, highest priority things that you are inspired by. And what happens when you were saying, you had the kids engaged, because you're teaching them life skills that they care about, right? So we completely miss the mark in school by not teaching things that kids actually care about. Things like money management, relationship skills. Like they come out of school and they don't know anything about actual life, and they are hungry for that. And so there's that piece. And then, that values driven piece here's a good example. So here's the real life experiment. My son, when COVID started, he had just gone into high school and he was getting straight A's, and I think he had 2 B's and the rest A's. And he was doing well. He was psyched with this, and he was like on it, and he was loving it. And then Zoom happened, and he went straight to F's, like all F's. I mean, and I always know, luckily I know what I know. So I know, okay, like this is it'll work itself out. We'll figure it out. We actually hired him a coach. He's working with an awesome coach, and he's shifting. But it was really wild because in the middle of this, we bought him, because he's in high school, he's about to get his driver's license. So we got him the driver's ed course, and it's like, I don't know, it was 35 hours of online courses. He did it in a couple days. So it was so awesome to see values, right? It was like
very, very, very interesting. Yeah.
Right? Like it wasn't, I hate Zoom or online learning necessarily. It's that I don't like what you're teaching me in the online school setting. But if it applies to something I really care about, I'll do a 35-hour course in 2 days. So it was so fun to watch and just see the real life example of how much we will be motivated, inspired. Procrastination is never a problem when you're living in your highest values, ever, because you love to do it, right? Like no one has to get me up in the morning to read books and consult with my clients because I love every minute of it. No one had to force me to get out of bed to be here to talk to you today, Cameron, and your people, because I love sharing and teaching and helping, right? And so that's my values.
It's so true. I was just recently with one of the folks in my Toastmasters group, and he's had trouble like staying in positions. And it was interesting as we started the conversation, he was saying, yeah, I'm looking for customer service. And as I got into his story, he was like, and I said, well, you've been in all these things. So what do you love and what do you hate? Oh, I hate customer service. What? Like he was looking for the one thing. So talk about competing mindset, right? Competing
commitments.
And then he was like, I have this thing. I'm OCD. I work out too much. But I don't see that side of him. He shows up for these Toastmaster groups. He's there. He's prepared. He's solid. Like he's engaging. He speaks well. He's excited. He shows up on time. He is fully present, fully present. So it is really, really amazing to see what is being diagnosed as like mental health and even within the individual, right?
Yeah. Absolutely. I love that you're saying this because it ties it all together really beautifully. It's like we don't have competing commitments in our highest values. And when you notice yourself getting really stuck, it's because I call it shoulding yourself. Like you're shoulding yourself from this place of I should do this, even though I don't want to. And usually it's from outside sources. One of the scariest things for us is to think that we're going to be ostracized or not liked or pushed out of a group or isolated. So we will often morph ourselves to please other people, and then it creates competing commitments. And we do this all the time with relationships and in our business. We'll do tasks in our business that we think, well, they told me I should do this, or that's what this great person who's really a big player in the industry is doing, and so I should do that. But then they feel themselves hesitating, procrastinating, not wanting to do it because they don't really want to do it. And so we're constantly doing this to ourselves and creating competing commitments. So, one of the biggest problems people will talk to me about is procrastination. Like, why am I procrastinating? And when we tap into what their highest values are, the procrastination goes away. And so this will happen with kids as well, right? And I don't know why we think kids aren't people and that we need to just train them to be robots in school and learn things that don't really matter anymore. Because really what I think we need to be starting at a really young age is just, what do you love to do? Let's cultivate that, and let's give you every resource you possibly can have to become a genius and change the world with what you love to do.
Yeah, I love it. And I think people are going to be, there's some controversy around like, because there's that person that calculus really touched them. And like, I use this every day in my job. So there's a difference between this is a part of the curriculum. It's going to be on the test. You're going to be judged on it versus sample, exposure. Hey, check this out. Read this book. We want you to try, if you think about like the dinner table, and kids are infamous for not loving all foods and not wanting to try different things. But if and that's a continual challenge as a parent, and I think that's a really great challenge as a teacher. Like, how do you expose kids to different things to really test out? Because everybody's resistance to new, right? We have whether it's xenophobia or just, you walking into a dark room, we're all a little afraid of the unknown.
Yeah, right? We have similarity bias is what it's called. Yeah.
So I think there's this conversation with education, which is, okay, we want to expose young minds to different things, but should it be a part of the curriculum? Should we be force feeding something that really doesn't have high value and doesn't speak to the values of the individual? And I think that's a tough job for educators. I mean, I don't know what the end all to that argument is, because, how do you actually measure exposure and sampling, right? We had little Amanda in the class, and we've sufficiently exposed her to calculus. We've figured out it's not a good look for her, and we moved her on to something else.
Right, because if you don't have the opportunity, you might not know what you like if you're not exposed to it.
Exactly.
Absolutely. It's interesting though, because something you just said is making me see the parallels. I have a lot of adults. I work with adults, right? So they come to me and they don't know their why, they don't know their zone of genius, and I look at it rooted as in those childhood parts where they never got taught to explore and find and discover and be curious and get to ask those questions, because we don't really give kids the time to do that in a school setting. It's more like, here's the curriculum. We've got to make sure you do well on these standardized tests. And so we're going to teach this to you. And there's not a lot of room for creative exploration. And we don't ask the kids what they want. And the parallel I just thought of as you were speaking, I was like, that's so fascinating, because when I work with I only work with entrepreneurs, but when I work with them, one of the first things I have them do is do market research to validate what they're doing. Right? Why don't we do that in school? Like, why don't we school validate? Like, what do the kids want to learn? And at least have a day a week dedicated to that. Okay. If we go, we still want to expose them and we still want them to have, a well-rounded education. Cool. Well, at least expose one day a week to exactly what the kids want to explore. Yeah. And I think just like in the business.
The perfect example of that is internships and opportunities to volunteer. So, at Randolph, where, they have it's a bigger school. Which is a whole nother conversation, small schools versus big schools, the resources that bring to bear and all that kind of stuff. I know New York City really well, and it's, amazing how many resources New York City has, but based on the school you go to is to dictate the resources that are brought to bear. This idea of, they have a medical program, so you can go and, volunteer, potentially do an internship in a hospital. You can go and, there's the engineering program, and there's some outlets there to go and potentially be an intern for the summer and everything. And those are the ways that they sort of do the driving Zoom, right? They sort of see, oh wow, the value of learning some of this biology and some of this math. I can sort of see it fits, and it gives it. And I think that's the much more valuable. I'm always on the let me be a practitioner. Let me understand how this works in the real world. Going into the textbook and saying this is what it's useful for is a difficult leap, I think, even for an experienced adult mind. It's really, really, really challenging for somebody that's never been exposed to the world at all, never traveled, never been in some of these different places and seen the need. If you've never ever had to fight for a meal, it's very difficult for you to understand budgeting and understand, it's tough until you bring it to the front and center of your mind. Let's keep going on, these core takeaways that we were talking about today, because, in terms of talking about eliminating competing commitments and the money mindset conflict, people want to make money out here, but then they don't. Right. Yeah. And I'm not saying they don't make money. I'm saying they don't want to make money. They want to make money because they feel like they need to make money, but they don't actually want, they have their why. They want to give back. They want to provide resources. So when it comes to charging money, they don't want to charge too much.
Yeah.
Right. Talk to us about these kind of money mindset conflicts that you're running into and these competing commitments.
Yeah, I love that you said that, because undercharging for your services is definitely one of the largest competing commitments I notice for people who are heart-centered and service-based. They tend to want to give away what they have for free. So the way you can think about this is on a narcissistic, altruistic spectrum. If you're overly narcissistic, you're going to want to take, and you're going to attract people who want to give. And those often, like, there's an imbalance there. If you're on the other end and you're overly altruistic, you're going to want to give away everything for free, and you're not going to be able to make money in your business. You've got to be on the end of giving and receiving, sowing and reaping, and where you're balanced in those two ways. So most people I can't say all people struggle with charging enough, but usually the people that I work with do, and I see it over and over again. And what it is that it's blocked money beliefs, right? So I call these money blocks. So we all have different money blocks that we got from our families. So something people can practically do here is go back and think about your very first interaction with money. And I haven't met anyone yet who doesn't have one, where you it's where you were young and you have your first time of experiencing awareness around money. For me, it came up when I was really little. I think I was like 5 or 6, and I was at a restaurant, and I remember the bill came, and there were a lot of people, and so they were splitting it, and there was like some tension. And in my little kid brain, I thought, well, just pay a check, like with a handwritten check, because I always saw my dad writing checks. And I didn't know the money in the check needed to be backed in the bank. I just thought it was like, you write the check and it's paid for. And everyone at the table laughed at me, and I hid under the table. And I mean, it impacted me so deeply that I stopped asking questions about money. And I realized, money's a stressful thing. Everyone at the table is stressed, and I don't know what I'm talking about. And I was embarrassed, and it could have been a teaching moment where they explained it to me, but instead it was like they laughed at me, and I got so embarrassed. And it's okay. I've forgiven my parents for this, but it's interesting to start thinking about. And so you want to go scanning through your life. When I work with people, I always have them do money stories, because there's so much depth and richness in there of you uncovering what your money blocks are. So start just examining your history with money. What have people told you about money? And this comes from movies, from culture, from your parents, from teachers, preachers, anyone in your life that you were looking to as models, whether you knew it or not. You were absorbing all the information around you. So it's the things they directly said to you. It's what you observed. It's what you experienced. And that has created your money, what I call your money blueprint, or your money OS, your money operating system. And so it's got tons of bugs in it, because if you are just unconsciously operating from those belief patterns that you got downloaded unconsciously, that's where you get stuck. And I have never met, I've worked with prisoners all the way to multimillionaires. And I have never met a person who doesn't have some sort of money block. Some people have less, some people have more, but you always have these limiting beliefs where you go, I feel bad about money. I feel dirty about money. I think money is the root of all evil.
You have the money is the root of all evil out in the culture, out in the world, right? So it's baked into your environment from the moment of birth.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny, Cameron. If you look at the next 5 movies you watch, you'll notice that wealthy people get pitted as the bad kind of evil force. Like they're greedy, they're jerks. It's wild to see. So we get it downloaded with these messages all the time that money is somehow bad and it turns people into bad people. And so what happens is your unconscious is preventing you from becoming what you think is bad. So if you think money is bad, you're gonna block money from flowing to you. It's a protective mechanism.
Yeah, no, I definitely feel like I'm a victim of it, and I'm trying to be the hero of my own story. I'm trying to be the hero for my children and teaching them how to save. I mean, I think one of those things that, I'm 42 now. So if I would have been saving, from my first jobs and thinking, I'm going to save 50% of my money, because it's not only about just making money. Like I've prevented myself from saving. I've prevented myself from saying, my money can build. I can actually structure wealth into my life and have savings and have a backing of income that provides a safety net for me to feel more confident and take more risk in my life and, make larger bets, because I have a safety net for myself. And I know I've blocked that for myself because I've definitely internalized all those messages around money, very much so in my life. So I feel it so much when you're saying it, and I see it in others, and it's weird because I'm sort of impressed by people that are able to save and are able to charge for their services without any sense of guilt, or at least from my angle of looking at it, like it seems like they're just good with charging the money. And I'm like, wow, that must be awesome.
We need to do a money story together. I get it. I mean, I felt the same way. I had a lot of downloads about, I was raised in a fundamentalist Christian family. And so in that structure, it was very rigid. And the belief system was that men are the breadwinners and women are supposed to be like more of the subordinate role. And that was like directly taught to me. And I watched it, and I struggled a lot in that way. Becoming a powerful businesswoman was very counter to that belief system. And so I've gotten to work through a lot of my competing commitments around women and power and money and how that feels. And then money being the root of all evil and that kind of thing. Yeah,
absolutely. So other than just understanding it and knowing that it's there, you talked about, creating your money story. So can you walk people through what that process looks like?
Yeah, absolutely. So I always have people, I usually do, like, I have a video lesson and I talk to people about the way that we get downloads and what it does to our brain and how it creates competing commitments. And then I have people write a money story, and then we dissect it. And then so they look at throughout their life course, what they were told. So there's their direct experiences, their what they were verbally told directly, and then what they observed, and through different people in their lives and what messages that meant. And then we go through a process of helping them pull out the competing commitments and then shift the belief system by doing a strategy that I've created to help them go, oh, this is my unconscious belief, and here's what I'm going to do to create new money beliefs.
That's awesome. I think it is empowering to know that you can save money, that you can build wealth, because a lot of the things, especially when people get into their why statements and you want to change the world this way, it all, money is definitely not going to make you happy, right? Like, to be clear, money is not going to make you happy, to be overly and abundantly clear. But right? Money allows access to so many different facets of being creative and exploration and sampling and doing all the things that could potentially lead you to be happening. If you're stressed about where your next meal is going to come from, or the fact that you don't have 3 months of a safety net in case, I don't know, a pandemic comes around, right? That it's tough, right? You're living in a state of fear, you're in a state of stress, and it doesn't help with happiness. You can meditate, you can work through this stuff, but it definitely doesn't add to it when you have that comfort level. And I know, for the first time really in my life, I have a little bit of money saved up, and it feels good to know that, my family, if I get hit by a bus, we got insurance in place. I don't stress about that. I stress about other things, but I don't stress about that. It takes a little bit off the plate.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I can say, because I've been on all sides of it, where I'm like, oh, I don't know how I'm going to eat, and thought about money all day, every day. And now I'm on this side where I'm like, oh, I'm totally financially flush, and my money just keeps increasing. And and it's like savings and investments, and I've learned all those strategies, and it's night and day. And I agree with you. I think the funny thing is that people think when I make a certain amount of money, I'll start saving. And it's the opposite. It's be, do, have. You've got to be a saver, be responsible with your money, appreciate money, and then what you appreciate appreciates. So you start saving and investing. And I did this when I was only making $2,000 a month gross. And I was on food stamps, and I was like, it was like hard, but I started learning philosophies of wealth building, and I was like, I'm going to save. I was saving $20 a month. That was it. Yeah. But I wanted to start the habit of it. And I have never touched my savings account since. Yeah.
Right? I know people that aren't, right?
Yeah.
They're making more, and they're not, right? They don't,
yes.
You can do so much. It's so interesting. And this gets a little bit into the kind of higher end of the financial stuff, but it starts with putting $5 away a week. It starts with
habits, simple habits,
and automating, right? And if you can, right? Automating, if you're getting a paycheck, putting it into a savings account, and then, hooking up with folks that are knowledgeable, and then Roth IRA. And it's just incredible once you start doing it. And I'm hoping this is helpful to folks that are going to watch this, because I love what you're talking about. I think it's so helpful for folks. If you just get in that, it doesn't matter if I have 2 pennies, if I save one, I'm doing the right thing. And at the end of the day, what's a penny? And a lot of people will get into, and I don't love this, right? Because the compounding thing, if I double my money every single day, and that's a little bit tough. And at the end of the day, how many people can double their money every day? But just putting something away every day is a surefire way to grow and build, and putting that savings account that you don't touch for anything at all. And it's just a backstop. And then you start creating buckets, right?
Well, and I want to add something here that most people don't think of, and it's really important, because I do money mindset work with people so that they can accelerate their money. Don't ever create an emergency money account, right? Like an emergency savings account, because you're then attracting an emergency to you to have money to pay for it. So I call mine a money magnet account. So I have my money magnet account where I have 6 months of living saved up, liquid cash that I can access at all points in time. And then I have my next layer, which is indexed accounts. And then I have stocks and all different kinds of investments. And you basically, what the habit of savings is doing is signaling to the universe that you are responsible with your money, and then more money will be sent your way to be responsible with. So I don't care if it's
that's the quantum physics.
Yes, absolutely. It is. I mean, it really is. It's this idea of what you focus on expands, and the small habits you create accelerate over time. And that's why compounding interest is so powerful. Compounding habits are so powerful. So when you start saving,
I'm just going to give a simple example of how that works. You probably didn't care about a red Toyota today. You probably didn't think about it. But now that I said red Toyota, watch. If you just watch this video, watch between today and tomorrow, if you're on the roads, how many red Toyotas you're going to see. So as soon as you focus on that thing, you start seeing it in the world. And that's I always love that example of something, because immediately when you're exposed to something, maybe there was a word that you didn't really know the definition
of. Totally. It's your reticular activating system. So it's your RAS that you're training to focus on something. It's really cool. You can do the experiment in your room right now, wherever you're sitting, watching this or listening or whatever. You can look around and tell yourself, look around in the room for all of the things that are red and take 10 seconds. Look around, find 3 things that are red. Let's see, I'll give you a few seconds. Then you come back. Okay, now recall the red things. Okay, but now I want you to tell me all the things without looking that are green. You didn't look for the green things. And if you're in a room that you've been in a lot, you might be aware of it. But it's so cool to do this experiment because you realize like, oh my God, the things that I'm focused on are what I see. The things that I'm not focused on, I completely miss. There's there's a fun video of these guys playing basketball, and it's really fast. Have you seen this?
Yeah.
It's so cool. And I someone sent it to me recently. I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. So they're all playing basketball and you're watching, and they tell you at the beginning of the video, look for how many times the basket was thrown or something. So you're looking to the basketball and seeing if it how many times it was passed. And then they play it again and they ask, did you happen to see the like white bear moving through the video? And you're like, you didn't even see it. And it's so obvious. And so this is exactly the way our brain is working all the time. And it's it's a really powerful tool to realize if I have my mindset set on poverty consciousness, that's what I'm tracking for in the world. If I have my money mindset set on abundance consciousness, that's what I'm tracking for in the world, which means you're going to attract opportunities to you. You're going to want to accelerate your money. You're going to want to charge more in your business. You're going to want to make a bigger impact through your business. Like it completely reframes what you see and the opportunities that come your way because you're tracking for them.
All right. So we're at the top of the hour, and I want to leave people with this because I think this leads into the conversation, because you are what you're focused on. Your outer world is a reflection of your inner world. So I want you to bring this back to the limiting beliefs because I want to bring that value to folks. So if you're focused on what you can't do versus what you can do, right? That kind of thing. Talk about that. And then I'm going to have you give all the places where people can find you and who you want to connect with.
Awesome. Yeah. So something you want to do, we'll use debt as an example. A lot of people freak out about debt and they just focus on the debt, instead of focusing on how many people can I serve to make more money, and then your debt's paid for and the debt's off the table. You're focused on who you can serve instead of the building debt, right? So a lot of people have this issue. So what you always remember, what you focus on expands. And so if you're focusing on wealth building and acceleration, that's what's going to expand. If you're focused on the debt, it's going to create fear, doubt, uncertainty, and it's a repellent energy that pushes money away. So this is a simple tip to start thinking about, what are my money beliefs actually doing for me, and how are they creating the life, the outer world that I would say I want? So are they in alignment? So if you have competing commitments in those ways, you'll know because you're going to have a different amount of money in the bank than you say you want. So you have competing commitments, and then you want to start to get into digging into those limiting beliefs and going, just even ask yourself the simplest question today and start brainstorming and getting curious. What are my money beliefs? Like, what are my top 10 money beliefs? And you can start by writing the sentence, wealthy people are blank, money is blank, and just start playing with that and start uncovering what you really actually unconsciously believe about money so that it's not running your life and your business.
I love that. All right. So tell everybody where they can find you, all the places. I know you have the podcast and you have the website, talk to folks, and then also tell everybody who you are looking to connect with. Who do you want to connect with?
Absolutely. So I'd say the best place to go if you want podcasts is go to Max Potential Money and type that in, maxpotentialmoney.com. It'll bring you to podcasts. So go there. That's awesome. There's also a YouTube channel, NFA Money, and I do videos there. And then I have a free webinar. It's called the number one deadly money mistake all entrepreneurs make. And it's a free masterclass. So go there. That is NFA Money Masterclass, NFA Money Masterclass. And I work with coaches and entrepreneurs who are high drive, already in business, but are wanting to increase their money flow. So I bring them all of the tips, tools, strategies that they need to accelerate their business growth and create like what we talked about at the beginning, more revenue, more profits.
I love it. Thank you so much. Again, who are the folks that you would really love to contact you just one more time, clearly for everybody?
So I work with entrepreneurs, coaches, consultants, thought leaders, authors, real estate investors, people who really have like a home-based business where most of their business is run from their computer is who I work with.
That's awesome. All right. I'm going to play this out on the Biz Dev theme. Thank you so much for being on the show today. I think we provided a ton of value. I know it was valuable for just me, and I'm sure for everybody that's going to view this in the future and everybody that viewed it today, they got a ton of value from it. Thank you very much, Dr. Amanda.
You're welcome. Thank you, Cameron.
Biz Dev Live, weekdays at 11 Eastern Time. Biz Dev Live, weekdays at 11 Eastern Time. Biz D with C, brought to you by Cameron T. Biz D with C, brought to you by Cameron T. This is business development, not even selling it. This is intelligent. If you watch it, I promise you benefit. Leadership and motivation, empathy and inspiration. Leadership and motivation, empathy and inspiration. Biz Dev Live, weekdays at 11 Eastern Time. Biz Dev Live, weekdays at 11 Eastern Time. Biz D with C, brought to you by Cameron T. Biz D with C.